Welcome to Truth Be Told. I am your host, Pierre Kasongo. Today, I am honored to have another of my great guests in town. He is born and raised in Edmonton, and he has always had a passion for photography. He started learning about the art of photography in high school using a black and white film camera and developing his own pictures. He has completed additional training through McEwen University's professional photography continuing educational program. He has traveled around the world, capturing various landscapes, including Machu Picchu in Peru, Australia's Great Ocean Road, and the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. Over time, his practice evolved from personal photos to professional ones, and starting potent photography in 2020, capturing events, products, and lifestyle images. Kelly's laid-back and low-pressure style puts subjects at ease, allowing for personalities, emotions, and authentic pictures to be captured. His unscripted approach to a photo session works around the client's central theme to achieve natural results. And recently, Potent Photography was ranked one of the top 5 product photographers in Edmonton for 2021 by Giggster. Please welcome to Truth Be Told, Potent Photography's Kelly Carter. Kelly, welcome. How are you doing, my man?
Awesome. I'm doing fantastic. And so great to be here with you virtually today.
You've always shown this passion for photography. Just early on, like when you got into photography, what did photos mean to you?
I think it was amazing, the idea that you could capture an image. And I came from the time when I first learned on film cameras where you take a picture, you only got 24 images you can take on a roll of film. You have no idea what you've got on there. Good, bad, you've done something. And you got to wait until you fill up that film and you finish off taking those pictures. Then you got to, make sure you rewind it enough so that you don't open
Mhm.
it in exposed light. Take it to the store, get it developed, and then wait a week or two. And then you get your envelope, and all the magic kind of comes out of that, and you're like, "Wow, look at this." And how that's evolved to the point now where we have digital cameras and you can instantly see whether it's a good or bad photo on there. And no longer are you limited to taking 24 and thinking that you need to limit your film. Most photographers are snapping hundreds of images, thousands of images, especially at events. And then they go through and they kind of call the images later. But if you think back to kind of when it first started or when I first started with it, you were very selective of what you took a picture of because
Mhm.
you only had 24 on that roll, and you wanted to make sure you got your best bang for your dollar every time you took a photo. So
Oh my God, you and I are both dinosaurs, and where we see the pictures because we're both of those eras that where where we both on that same term. It's just like, okay, 24 pictures. You better make sure you get that photo right, and it has to be a significant one. Not to mention, for some of the people that are going like, wait, you have to wait like a week to get your pictures back? Like, remember when you'd have to go to those either those like those supermarkets and there'd be those like the photo developing labs.
yeah. No, a whole different world, right? And but that I think that was a good kind of inspirational point for it because it was just really neat what you could get, and that idea of a memory, right? Having a memory from a moment that happened that you wanted to capture and you keep. And back then people had photo albums. You would go to your parents' basement, you'd open up the
Hmm.
album, and you'd look at pictures of you as a baby and growing up, and birthday parties and Christmas and all the special events and memories that you have. And now, you know, many kids, many families are that they don't have those printed albums anymore in their houses. They're all digital albums, they're Facebook albums, they're on
Mm.
Instagram. And while we're sharing these photos sometimes live with the world, these platforms and that don't always exist forever. And the digital images, you know, sometimes there's issues where a hard drive gets corrupted or they lose it. So again, that backup is really important.
Uh-huh.
You know, but the importance for kids, and I have some children as well. And when we, you know, we had a lot of digital images that we kept previously, and all of a sudden, you know, my kids started wanting to see pictures. And so we had some photo albums that we printed off and made, and the joy and excitement that was in their face when they look back at something that happened last year or 2 years ago. And it was amazing. And it was kind of like a storybook to them where, you know, sometimes at bedtime it'd be like, oh, I just want the photo album. I just want to go back and look at these pictures and kind of relive that moment that happened for them. And that to me is just the importance of it, but also a bit of that joy of photography and the value that it has that really lasts a lifetime for so many people.
You know, the funny thing is, you know, my brother and I, you know, we were talking about the pictures sometimes. He mentioned how he likes pictures that are natural and not the ones where everyone that are always the Colgate kind of smile, like always smile, just always smile like the camera. You know, the ones where it's spontaneous, just capture people in their in just in their natural moment. You have that ability and that passion for that too.
That's really, I guess, my style, right? You know, if I go back to like, you know, when I got married or had to do professional photos and get them done, most awkward experience ever. And I think so many people find this awkward. I like to think that, you know, there's a lot of guys out there that's that same sort of thing where they get pulled into it by their girlfriend or something and or their partner, and it's like, okay, now we're going to do this, and then it's like, well, how do I stand? How do I pose? How do I turn my head? Is this the right way? And it just feels awkward.
Mhm.
And you know, it feels awkward on the inside, but it looks awkward on the outside. And you know, every time you look at that photo afterwards or that, you're going to be like, oh, like if you remember the feeling you had when in the photo as well, right? It's not just the image, and it might be a great image, but you remember how you felt in that moment and in that image. And so this unscripted approach really, I think, is important to kind of get people to be natural, to be relaxed, and to engage in a conversation. And I recently went out and did a engagement photo shoot with another couple here just the other week. And you know, when we went out with them, and they'd just done one with another photographer as well, probably 3 weeks before they met up with me. And you know, you could tell the kind of sense of nervousness and the is my hand in the right spot, and am I standing okay? And I told them just throw that all out the window. What I want you to do is just be yourselves around each other. I want you to interact with each other the way you would normally interact. And you know, we're gonna go for a walk, and I always find that's a good starting point. One, nature just puts people at ease, but two, we went for this walk and we started capturing these amazing images of them out on the walk. And you know, some was coming over a hill and a path, and they started to kind of walk down, and we got it right at the right moment that with the snow and the path and kind of where they were. And you know, I could just put a little bit of light on the path as they were kind of walking. It's like this is their future. This is where they're going. And they loved that. They thought that was amazing. Another one, you know, we ended up capturing again with them walking is I got this moment where they're holding hands and they're talking to each other and they're kind of looking at each other, and you get this connection that exists there. And again, just really natural, relaxed photos. And then the third one that I could say is one where I said, you know what, we're just going to play. Like, I just want to play. I want to see what we can do with this. And I'm always about playing with different things. And so we had
That's
some
amazing.
lights with us that day. It was just after sunset. And so it's starting to get a little bit dark. And I knew we were going to be at a race for time with the light. And so I thought, you know what, I'll bring these lights. We'll just kind of see what happens. And so I set up a couple, you know, just strobe lights or that off camera flashes, and just said, hey, we just kind of stand here and you know, I'm just going to get a couple photos here and just see if this works or not, right? One of the best times to get photos because again, they're not thinking about the camera. And so I snap a couple photos of that, and they turned out just spectacular. and you see the light and you see the lines and the shadows and just how it all was. So afterwards, I loaded them up on my computer that and kind of showed them some of the shots that we had and picked out a couple that they wanted to use for a save the date card that they wanted to get out here, ideally before Christmas. And so we picked it, did a quick edit and that with it, and they were just shocked. One, just how natural and great the photos were, and like, this is amazing. And then
Yeah.
the second piece was the idea and like how much impact editing has of a photo afterwards. And that there's a lot of things you can do, and you can take out that extra person that's on the path behind them, or different things like that that just really enhance the image and the shot. And they were so impressed by the end of it with their final product and what they had. And to me, that's a job well done. They weren't stressed, they were relaxed, they were excited about what they got at the end. And when they look at that picture later, it's going to be a fantastic memory for the two of them.
I actually can kind of relate because we actually even did a photo shoot a few months ago, and during the photo shoot, we were even having a conversation just about each other, just about just general things in life, even with pictures, and we were bringing out technique that were that were in the movies by Martin Scorsese. You know how he uses how in certain like pivotal moments in the movies, Goodfellas or Casino, he uses stills to show a pivotal point in a character's moment. Like it, rather than like something's about to change in a character, or this is a pretty critical moment of the plot. It goes into freeze frame. For example, like in Casino, when Robert De Niro's character is falling in love with Sharon Stone, it's a freeze frame, and it shows Sharon Stone looking absolutely beautiful in that in that dress at the casino table. It's almost like, yeah, there's that picture right there. It's that perfect shot. And that's an example of how pictures matter. And we were even going into analysis of, like that's almost like a photographer's like state of mind.
Yeah, there's so much that can kind of be done with that. And hopefully you felt good. Like Sharon Stone there while we're out there taking photos, walking around or that. But the images that we got were amazing. Like you went and you were relaxed, and we got you smiling, we got you laughing. I don't think I got any of you crying, but definitely a reaction and that emotion right there.
No.
Like we got that. We captured
Yeah.
that, and there's so many emotions when I could go through afterwards and pick from what photos are going to look best for you,
Oh
and knowing
yeah.
your purpose and your need for them, but also knowing that we had some fun along the way as we went through it. And you have to have those good photos. That sometimes there's bad photos, and then there's emotional photos, and it all comes down to what you're shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
A wedding, for example, you're like a photojournalist while you're there, and you need to get those classy photos of glamour and elegance and everything that's kind of attached to that. But then you also need those photos of just raw emotion and the tears when they happen and when they come. And I know the last wedding I photographed, that was one thing that me and the bride and bridesmaids had talked about. Her,
Oh
that
my
was,
God.
don't be afraid to get those photos of us in that raw state. And it was actually one of the things they wanted. And they're like, we're going to cry. We know we're going to cry. And then the groom,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm going to cry too. And I was like, great, I'm going to get photos of all of you crying at this wedding.
Yeah.
And I did. And again, amazing experience, but just relaxed, natural, and authentic photos that they can look back
Yes.
on, they can be proud of, and they can hopefully feel that it was a good experience while they were there and what they had as a final product.
Yeah, again, that you bring up that, or that authenticity in pictures, like it's bringing out like no, it's raw honesty, like this whole broad spectrum of emotions and in people in your pictures. Like I love that because that like you said earlier, the pictures also tell us they tell a story.
Absolutely. And more importantly, they tell your story, right? It's not
Yeah.
the story of the person taking the photo, it's the story of the person living the photo. And that's why you
Yeah.
can look at photos so many times afterwards and it won't have the same meaning to someone looking from the outside as it does to the person that, was in the photo or in that moment, that lived that moment and captured it. But then there's some photos that, yeah, everyone can look at and be like, wow, that is you, right? Like that image really captures you. And when you get those moments, that, like, as a photographer, those are the best compliments you can get, because then you've captured the real, raw, original person, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
and it's not a copy. It's not a staged episode. That's what it is.
I've actually even showed my mother the pictures that we took, and she actually had that reaction where she was like, "Oh yeah, that's you right there." Like there's you actually just kind of looking where it's almost like you're pondering into the future, like, "Oh, I really love that picture," and it was actually the one where it was the where I was in a suit looking away, and that was a shot where she absolutely loved. You know,
Yeah.
she loved all those the pictures. She really thought that you were did an amazing job. But the one that really jumped at her, that was just like the one in the suit where I was looking away.
Yeah.
And also there was one where I was looking at that pond, and then you did the when where it was in black and white.
Yeah.
That one was a whoa.
No, there's some fantastic ones we got there. And even like the one where you're sitting at the picnic table and I
Hmm.
had you talking just like you're talking on your podcast here, that, and you got your microphone in front of you and I'm kind of off in the distance and I get this photo and
Yeah.
it's just like the sliver of lights kind of coming in through the trees. But at the same time, the day we did that shoot, there was so much smoke in the air, right? From the fires that were going in through BC and coming over. And it just gave
Oh,
this neat atmosphere where you're sitting in this pose and the lights hitting you, the microphone's there. And I was like, wow, like this really captured kind of like, to me, kind of like what you're doing and the conversations you're having with people and kind of the experience that was attached to it. And I thought that was amazing.
I don't even remember the smoke. I just remember that it was just a great photo shoot, and we were just having so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. And time just flew by, and then we're losing light, and we're like, "Hey, we gotta wrap this up."
Yeah, but the angle that the light was just hitting us was actually just spot on, and with but just that day, just everything was just moving at a really good pace, and just it didn't feel like it was okay. It the just direction. It was just like just two people just it was just it didn't feel like orders. It felt very fluid.
And that's exactly what I was going for, right? Like the
Yeah.
idea that it's two friends walking in a park, and I'm going to try to capture some images for you that you're going to be able to use afterwards, and that's really what I try to do with everyone, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't want to say that you're not special, but it's that idea that everyone should feel comfortable and just feel natural and be able to kind of meet up and have this experience and this goal that, what, we're going to get some photos today, we're going to get some photos that kind of fit this theme or this idea, and then they're going to walk away and hopefully feel proud about it and excited, and that's really what I go for.
Yeah. And there was a great story that you shared with me during the photo shoot that you do, because you're not only doing photo shoots for individuals but also for companies. Like, For example, one of them was a brewery, and they were having like specific instructions or requirements for it. Tell me again that story.
Well, I think there's a few things. I've done a couple of brewery shoots now, and beer is probably one of my favorite things to photograph. One, because I love beer. I mean, it's great, it's delicious, especially craft beer, and the craft brewery scene in Alberta is just exploding, right? And there's
Yeah,
so many great craft breweries out there that, but a lot of times too, their marketing is limited and that they don't have the resources or the funds sometimes or that. So I know when I was like getting started off and doing some more of the commercial photography type work, I offered to do some photos for a few breweries and that, and we met up and um, just the things that we could do with the light and positioning it with the beer and what we can do to help create that look of like I want to drink it and I want to drink it now. I remember taking some photos and I had a server there. She was helping me out and she was holding one of
mm.
the lights for me as we were doing it. And I captured these photos of this beer and I showed it back to her after I did it. And she was like, wow, I want to drink that. Like you are making me thirsty right now with these photos.
Oh,
And that to me is like that's what you want your reader, your viewer to kind of see at the end of the day when they go through it and they see those photos. And so yeah, I like great experience overall and just really neat to get behind the scenes, I want to say, to some of these places, but also to meet some really interesting people and they all have their own stories as well. And I'm just as much about learning about other people's stories as it is my own story while I'm there. And that, just contributes to the journey and why I find this such an interesting field to be involved in.
yeah. Yeah, actually, you know what? That actually leads up to an interesting fact that you are bringing up because you say that you are trying to learn about your own journey right through photography. Can you kind of expand on that?
Well, I guess like, I think of like my own journey and kind of what it is. One of my philosophies for life probably is that it's just unscripted, right? Like no one can write life. No one can tell you where you're going, what you're going to do, what you're going to be when you grow up, right? And I just remember like in high school, you're leaving and it's like, well, in our day, we were told you could do anything. And so you left there kind of thinking, I can do anything, but I don't know what I want to do. And then you take exams that are kind of like, I call them exams. Assessments probably is more the right word,
Mhm.
where you're filling out these forms and it's like you're going to be best at these types of careers or things that are there. You
Mhm.
look at the list afterwards and you're comparing it with your friends and it's like, well, why'd you get this and why'd I get that? And but we
Uh-huh.
could do anything. And so it kind of goes back to the idea. It doesn't matter what any of those assessments said or things said, what people have said about you in your past. You really truly can do anything you want and you can live this life as long as you're kind of true to yourself and kind of who you want to be. And I think that's the most important thing is you identify kind of your core elements to your own self and what makes you feel good. And then you hold yourself true to those as you kind of work through life.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that, everything you look back on, you'll be proud of and you'll be excited. And you'll think, wow, that was a great memory. But I think the most important thing is to go into it knowing it's not scripted. You don't know where the end is and you don't know where you're going. And I like those aspects of things. I think that brings that authenticity out of it, and that we don't need to hide kind of who we are or like pretend to be someone that we're not just because we see it in society or we feel that needs to be portrayed upon us or this is how you should behave and that sort of stuff. It's those little moments where it's like you have
Amen.
opportunity in front of you. And I do this traveling all the time. Like I love to travel. I love to see the world. But I'm big on that. I like to fly into somewhere or go somewhere, and I don't really have an exit plan. Other than like maybe it's a flight in from here and a flight out from over here,
Mm.
and they're two different cities. I don't know how I'm getting from one to the other.
Mhm.
And once I get to the first place, the path just kind of it starts to appear. You start talking to people, you experience things, you see things, and you say, "Oh, I want to go here," and then, "Oh, I want to go here." And you don't really live with regrets from missing something because you saw everything you wanted to see while you were there based off the experiences that you had, those lived experiences that kind of go with it.
Mhm.
And so that's where I get really excited about that. And that's that whole idea of like, you can go in with a plan and it can be highly structured and organized that we're going to do this on day one and this on day two. And we got to see these 7 things on day three and 9 a.m. here, 10 a.m. here, 12 a.m. here. And as you run through that, it
Yeah.
adds stress to the experience. Everyone gets stressed because if the plan doesn't go as
Oh,
it
don't
adds
these
to it.
aren't these vacations kind of just well, no, boring? Like that's like okay, you got it right. I get you. I totally get you. Like that, those moments where you just add that spark that where it's absolutely spontaneous. Like where it's all surprises. It's just beautiful because you don't know what to expect, and it's just amazing. And like you said, you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what you're missing. It's just beautiful.
You're living the moment that you're in at the time, and I think that's the important piece of it. But that also helps me from a low stress aspect in kind of life and kind of what's there and what's needed. And so I think it's a good way to go. And then I think you got to be just natural as you go through life and be you, and you're not going to regret that kind of life, right? And so I look at that and I apply it to the photo sessions, that idea of this unscripted, natural you, that sort of thing. It's the whole idea of if it's too scripted, it gets stressful. And I mean, I've photographed weddings and that before that too.
Mhm.
Last one I went to, and it was interesting because it was in Cuba, and we went down to Cuba or that to do this. But the morning that we're leaving,
Mhm.
a hurricane had just hit.
Oh
This is only like
no.
about a month ago or so. And
Oh.
so we're on the plane. We know there's a hurricane that just went through there. The plane's been delayed, but we're flying in and we hear there's going to be no electricity or that when we get there, right? So
Oh.
kind of get in, land there. It's like, we get off the plane, we get through customs, we on the bus, we're going to the resort. And it was kind of like, the city's dark, right? The country's dark. And we're going out to the resort and oh, don't worry, there'll be power out there. And we get into like that area. It's like, well, there's still no power. We get to the resort. Well, they got a backup generator for like the main building, but where most of the rooms and stuff where though there's no power out there. So we're giving little tea lights as we walk to our rooms and or candles, right? And so we ask, are there matches? And we got, oh no, no, no.
Oh.
So we're like, well, it's great to have a candle, but without a match, it's not a whole lot of help.
Oh
And so, we kind of get,
my
but
God.
basically survived like 3 days like this. And again, I'm
Oh.
there for a wedding, and the bride and groom is just kind of like, we know we're getting married. We know we're getting married at 4 p.m. That's what we know. And it was just like we went through the first 3 days without power. The day of the wedding came by, still no power. And we met with the wedding coordinator. They got the stuff set up. They had a wedding at 4 p.m., just like they said they were going to do. And it was an amazing experience. It's a story that couple will never forget from what their wedding was like.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the stress that must have been on them as a
Oh
wedding
my
couple,
God.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, I got to see the relaxation attached to it too, where it was they know that all of this is out of their control. Their
Mhm.
family is there, their friends are there, the important people that they need are there, and the event's going to happen. And that's kind of all they needed. And I think it was an amazing experience and wedding, and probably one of the most memorable ones that I've been to, or that as well.
Love will overshadow anything, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can get through it, right? And you have each other, you have your family, and I think it's also that importance of that network, right? Family and friends, and you can see others getting stressed out for them, but at the same
Yeah.
time, that realization, like it's out of your control. Um, let's make the best time we can while we're here, right? Like there's gorgeous beaches, there's sunshine, we can still walk around. Like it could have been a lot worse than what it was. But it was still a pretty probably devastating experience for the country as a whole and everyone that was kind of going through it. But for this one little pocket that I was with and kind of dealing with, it was they got through it. And the day after the wedding, the power came back on. it was actually like that night we are going back to our hotel rooms and the power all returned, came back on. And I was
Oh,
like, wow, like that to me was like, you got married that day. Everyone kind of went back to the rooms after the reception and now the power's on. That was amazing.
congratulations. You just passed the test. And you know what? If you're willing to get married without any power, then that's enough for the island to return with power. This is a sign.
Moving.
That's right. But it's so beautiful that you get to capture so much of these moments. Not well, of course, these moments, and also like these beautiful sights in the world. Like you've mentioned in your intro alone, that you've been to Machu Picchu, on the great Ocean Road and Giant's Causeway. Can you tell us the story behind those three worldwide areas?
Oh, sure. I think probably like since I was a teenager, I was really interested in Machu Picchu. I thought it was a really unique kind of place in the world and kind of magical to an extent. And so, it took quite a while, but eventually I got the opportunity to go there. And so I got in. I did a 5 day trek to get up to the mountain there, which that itself was its own journey. I had to battle altitude sickness getting there. And I got to tell you, like altitude sickness is not one of those things that you can just like kind of like man through. Like you don't just be like, oh, I'll get through. It's just toughen up. We're just going to go a little further here, the next year that it knocks you out. Like it is devastating to
Oh
kind of get
no.
hit with. And all I can say is that, I was so thankful for this guy I met from Singapore, that ended up having some extra kind of altitude sickness pills or that he could give me. And so I took a couple of those as we were going through the journey or that after the first 2 days and made a world of difference, like night and day to the experience that I was having. But I was still on that track. I met some amazing people on that journey, kind of going through that. And kind of on the last day there that we entered Cusco, which is like just the town at the base there of where Machu Picchu is. And as we kind of went into that, my wife was there. I found her kind of in the square, and then the next day we did the final kind of journey up to the top of the mountain. And it was just amazing as I got up there. We're there just around sunrise kind of thing, and you got to see like the fog that's kind of covering the mountain, and then it kind of starts to dissipate and spread out. And I got these, I don't know, I thought they were really stunning photos that I'd taken, and this probably kind of led me a little bit more to the journey of the professional side of stuff, where
Yeah.
I edited them, I blew them up, I actually had some on my wall, and people would come and be like, "Wow, that's an amazing photo! Like, can I buy a copy of that for me? Like, can we get some prints, right?" And there was that, and same trip. We'd stopped at another place, it's a desert oasis called Wakachina, and went there as well. And I got these amazing photos too of this oasis. The desert's kind of there in the hills, and people are sandboarding down the mountain or the sand mountain kind of behind it, and it's just amazing sight, right? And so to me, like they're locked in these experiences where I have stories that can go on and on about the journey and the adventure that attached to all these photos. But it was just really amazing experiences to be able to see this, but then also to capture those moments that I can look back at any time, and the memories they just fly right back into you, right? And that's where I was like, I got to do this for other people. And that's kind of around the time people started asking, like, oh, would you take pictures of me for this, or would you do that? And it kind of led to the journey that kind of got me to potent photography.
Recently, Giggster got you quite the honor, one of the top 5 product photographers in Edmonton.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little shocked when I saw that. It's not like it's something you apply for or that, right? It just kind of popped in on the email, and I was like, "Oh, look at that! That was a great email to open up on a Tuesday morning." kind of see that existed there. That so it's nice, obviously, when people kind of recognize the work that you're doing, and that that there's a skill obviously attached there, which is really great. But I also realize, like, photography itself, it's is very much a practice, right? It's ever evolving, it's always changing. And as a photographer, it's one of those things that you just got to constantly keep kind of challenging yourself to do better at. And that's where I can look at some, like, the brewery photos and stuff I did from one of the first breweries I did, and taking some pictures of beer, and that was done, and really like those photos. The brewery really liked them, thought they were amazing as well. To what I did on the second one that I had done probably 6 months to a year later, and it's just this elevation that kind of happens, right, as you learn new techniques, as you perfect different areas. And there is lots of kind of specializations, obviously, that kind of go into photography. And I've really been one to try to avoid specializing too much into one area. And it's because I think it's that keeping your brain moving and challenging yourself in all these different settings really it applies, and it fits with everything that you do. And the other piece is that I'm very much a people person. I have difficulty, I think, working in isolation of people kind of around me. And so that's where I enjoy doing those couple shoots, engagement shoots, wedding shoots, family shoots, because I enjoy to talk to people and have that connection with them. And you don't get that with the product that you have in front of you. There's not much to talk to there. There's people there, but it's not the same experience, and you can't necessarily see the same emotion. But you can definitely get that awe factor when you get the right photo and people are like, oh, and that's always an exciting moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's kind of hard to tell a craft brew. Okay, come on, show off that foam, Joe. That foam. Oh, if only that ale was actually just a little bit lighter. Oh my God! Well, is the client's gonna be happy? Is the lager too dark, too light?
Yeah, well, and does it capture the setting and the experience and all of that as well? But it's even beer photography. This is one where I didn't realize how much of a niche this one really is until you kind of get into it more. Like, there's stuff about, how do you get that condensation on the outside of the glass so that it looks cold, right? How do you get the bubbles and the carbonation kind of coming up to makes it look more crisp, right? Like more fresh and kind of ready to drink, right? And then you're right, the head that's on the top of the beer, we all know that only lasts for so long. And so, if you take too long to get the photo, it's going to go down. But then there's tricks you can do to kind of artificially create it and bring it back up for a short period of time. And that happens so frequently, or that kind of in photography as they go through that.
Is there like someone on set that just there to, like, all right, okay, pour. Oh, it fizzled out. Someone drink it.
Well, it's tricks of the trade, right? Just a little like wooden stick or something like that. If you have like a little wooden stick and you give the beer a little swirl or a little stir, you'll see the bubbles in the foam just instantly come up, and it'll overflow the glass probably. And if you want a party trick on a friend or that, you just give them a wooden chopstick or that, and just tell them to give their beer like 2 or 3 swirls around, and then just watch it just come up and kind of overflow the glass a little bit as that happens. It's crazy how quick it happens.
Yeah. But all of these, they kind of intertwine with all of this wisdom. It just kind of intertwines with just this idea that you have to be authentic and living your truth, and not be and just and live in the moment. I like that in the moment, and just seize opportunities. You are an opportunist too.
Oh, totally. I think it's important. I go by kind of that idea of, genuine you and life, and like things I look at is, laugh, live, and play, right? You got to laugh the moments in life, and laughing's contagious. It brings happiness and joy to people around you. And no one really gets upset if they laugh too much at an event, right? Like it's one of those things that it really just, it makes people relaxed. It brings them out. You're smiling right now, right? It's like, yeah,
Yes, of
laughing. It's
course.
good, right? We got to have it. Living, right? You got to live the experience. You got to live the moment. You got to go out and say yes and do things, because those are experiences, whether they turn out to be good or bad. They're still a memory you're going to have, an experience you're going to talk about. And one kind of funny piece just on that component is I was with this group of youth once, and writing some sessions and stuff for them, and we had to get into this water that was really cold.
Yeah.
And so we're getting in, and it was just like, oh, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. I'm like, it's these moments that are going to be the ones that you tell people about in the future, 10, 20 years down the road, when you're like, I went swimming in here. I did this, right? And they looked at me and then just kind of started laughing. I was like, you're right. It's those crazy moments, those bad moments, those ones where it's like, oh, this is a little bit miserable, where you're like, those are the stories you talk to people about, right? I'm telling you about Machu Picchu and going on a 5-day hike and how I got altitude sickness. And that was one of my memories, one of my best and worst memories of that trip that kind of went with it. So it's like, you got to laugh, you got to live. And then you got to play, right? You got to take your passions and you got to experience those passions and grow them and develop. And, I'm one that always likes to learn, whether it's learning how to code a website, learning photography, to, just learning how to fix or build something, right? It's one of those things that you got to constantly keep feeding your brain. And it's amazing, how great life can be when you do all those things.
I actually do have these 3 questions, though, that are all relate to all of that, because you have so much wisdom to share, and both up to 3 questions, 3 critical questions. The first one: what does living your truth mean to you?
Oh, that's a good one. To live your truth, I think, means to live your life, like, that unscripted nature of don't go in thinking the end. You got to go with the flow sometimes and have the experience, live through experience, good, bad. It's experience, and it builds you. It builds your character. It builds your knowledge, your wealth of information, and I think that's important.
Second question: how does living your truth and being authentic makes you a better person?
Well, I think when you're original, it's that idea of like, you are your own original copy. No, people can try to copy you or that, right? But you shouldn't try to copy someone else. You are yourself. And so I think you gotta be original. You gotta stand tall. You gotta be proud of who you are and what you do. I think it's something we see a lot of times in a lot of other cultures, where it's about, your truth, your experience, your lived experience. And I think that's important. You need to stand tall and be proud of who you are and what you do. And then I think you need to look for the light. And maybe this is the photographer in me or that, right? But we all face challenges, and it's really up to you. When you're faced with that challenge or adversity, or that is what you do that defines you. And so I think those are, kind of the 3 things that I would say, when I think about what does that mean, that's it.
Yeah. And a last question: what advice would you give to someone looking to embrace who they are or embrace themselves?
Be genuine, right? People love you and want to be with you because of who you are, not because of who they think you can be or who you want to be or anything else like that. So, be yourself, be genuine to yourself and who you are. And that's why people are around you. That's why you have the friends that you have. And I think it's really important that you never lose that.
Words of Wisdom by Kelly Carter. You can reach Kelly at potentphoto.ca if you are looking to get a photo shoot. You can And then with his help and his consultation, he'll be able to get you a great photo shoot. Kelly, thank you so much for being a part of Truth Be Told. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Pierre, I loved it. It was fantastic. As always, it's a pleasure getting a chance to hang out and talk with you for a little bit. I don't know where the time goes when we get together, but I really enjoyed this. So thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. And of course, thank you to the viewers, to you, my viewers, and to the listeners. And always remember to stay true.